Me. It is Passenger Seat Radio. It is Tuesday. What the hell date is it? I gotta look at my phone. It is March 18th. Yeah, I know. A lot of people haven't figured out why I don't know what the date is. It's because it doesn't matter. That's the truth. And you're on my 13-mile commute home. Actually, I'm off returning a controller today. So you haven't seen a video of this because I'm not making one of it. The Apex 4 from, was it FlyDigi, I guess is the company. And so I'm taking that back to, taking it up to Kohl's and having it returned to Amazon. Hey now, welcome to the show. Fernando Garcia, how the hell are you? So yeah, so that's going back. So why did I buy it in the first place? Well, all right, so let's talk about game controllers for a little while. Not all of you watch my YouTube channel. Oh yeah, I know who you are, Flair. You were my intern for a while. I remember your name. You're still on the cover of many of the Retro Gaming Radio CDs. So, God damn it, does that feel like it's about 100 years ago? Feels like that to me. So let's talk about controllers a little bit. So we all know that I've always been a big proponent of the Xbox Elite Series controllers, namely because I absolutely adore rear paddles. I adore having 4 extra buttons at my disposal. That's because, let's be honest, the Elite controllers have really shitty bumpers. In fact, I'm not sure of a controller that doesn't have really shitty bumpers. It seems to be a standard problem. It's almost like bumpers were never really intended to be used. They just kind of threw them on there. And if you take a look at certain games, for Christ's sake, you're constantly cycling that goddamn bumper. And they wear out. I mean, like I said, the Elites, the biggest problem with the Elite controllers were the bumpers. I would buzz through like every 18 to 24 months. I would wear out one of the bumpers on the goddamn Elite controller and I'd have to buy another one. So I probably had 2 or 3 Elite 1s, moved up to the Elite 2, and once I stopped using the damn bumpers and started using rear paddles, I got a lot more lifespan out of them. I didn't get the stick drift that people got. My biggest problem with the Elite controllers was and has been and always will be those goddamn bumpers. Well, once I conditioned myself to actually use the rear paddles in place of bumpers, it's not easy. I mean, you have a lot of muscle memory using controllers for 20 fucking years. You know what I mean? So once you got used to it though, thanks, Al. No, I had to look up the date. That's the only way I got it right. That shows what I know. Anywho, so once I started using the paddles, my Xbox Elite controllers lasted a lot longer. And of course, let's be honest, the worst control methodology, the worst controls ever designed and created by man. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's the Guru meditation board on the Amiga. You would be wrong. You would think it's the ColecoVision. You'd also be wrong. You'd say Intellivision. You'd also be wrong. Worst control idea ever made was clicking in analog sticks as buttons. I don't know, somebody either lost a bet or somebody was doing some of that industrial grade government research fucking weed and said, dude, you know what'd be great, man? Dude, if you could click the sticks in, man. And then here's the best part. It wasn't bad enough that they came up with that shit. They decided to make an industry standard of those things, of those buttons that are worked, that you, how can I put this? Hang on. Talking myself into a corner. The absolute worst possible things you could tie to those buttons are what became the industry standard. What do I mean by that? Well, you guys know what it is. What is typically a right click in? Clicking in on the right stick. Melee. Right, the stick you're using to fucking look at shit and point at an enemy is what you click in to melee. Worst idea ever. And then before they figured out toggle to run, clicking in and holding in the left stick, which you use to move, by the way, controls whether you're sprinting or not. Pass the fucking Doochie to the left-hand side. Worst idea ever. Well, you have 4 buttons on the back of the Elite controller, 2 for bumpers, 2 for stick clicks. Bing, bang, boom, you're back at the mall. So, that's why I've always liked the Elite controller, and I will never own another controller that does not have 4 rear paddles. In fact, the Steam Deck would have never been purchased by me had it not had 4 rear paddles. That was one of the ultimate check boxes for them to check for me, was having 4 rear paddles, believe it or not. Oh, and not being small for small little elf hands. That was the other thing. Anyway, I digress. So once I got this, I was an Elite 2 user up until I got the Steam Deck. Once I got the Steam Deck, I was still an Elite 2 user, but then I figured out gyro. You haven't lived until you've played a first-person game with gyro. Now, much like getting used to the rear paddles, that's not going to happen overnight, man. And people, myself included, you know, what are they? Scouts Honor. Hey now, Grindhouse fan, what's up, man? I failed with gyro a couple of times. I tried it, I couldn't do it, I gave up. I tried it, I couldn't do it, and I gave up. Then I tried the touch pads on the Steam Deck. It's just like the Steam controller. Tried it, couldn't make it happen. Then one day, I was really pissed off. I got into Overwatch 2's Overwatch's Mystery Heroes. Now, Mystery Heroes, for those of you who don't play Overwatch, means you don't pick your class, you don't pick your character. You just get randomly assigned. Every time you die, you're assigned another random character. Now, if you're a mouse and keyboard player, doesn't matter. If you're a controller player, though, there's a lot of characters in these sorts of games that are closed off to controller players. Not physically closed off, but don't fucking bother. That's what those characters are. I'm talking things like Widowmaker and Genji and Hanzo, the real precision, accuracy sort of things that really have to have a mouse and keyboard to play efficiently. I got tired, because I was really into Mystery Heroes, I was really tired of getting a character assigned to me at the beginning of the round, after I died, whatever, that I just couldn't play. There's just no way to be competitive with Widowmaker with a controller. Unless you got gyro. Now listen, gyro is not a mouse. It's the next best thing, but it's still not a mouse. However, after about 21 days of playing with gyro and fighting it tooth and nail the whole time, I finally started to get reasonably competent with it. Meaning, I could play, okay, Widowmaker, but like Ana and some of these other precision type shooting characters, I was suddenly starting to get a little bit competitive with. And it's like, well, son of a bitch, where's this gyro been all my life? I got totally sucked into it, and pretty soon, every competitive shooter that I was playing, gyro or nothing. Same with Marvel Rivals. I play that with a gyro. But what's a guy to do when his home PC, his gaming PC, his gaming rig has an Elite 2 controller on it? Ain't no gyro in there, friends. And it doesn't appear that Microsoft is even remotely interested in getting gyro into its flagship controller. So you got to start looking around. Now, what was you going to say? Shane, the PlayStation DualSense Edge, the greatest controller ever made. I'll die on the hill. And that's the controller you should be using if you're a gyro player. That may be true. But I can tell you right now, I'm not a fan of PlayStation controllers. I do not like symmetrical analog sticks. Could I spend 21 days maybe and break the habit of using an Xbox controller? Maybe. But I don't really have the desire to do it, to be honest with you. And quite frankly, let's be honest, the DualSense is pretty pricey. I can get a Core controller, a Core Elite 2 controller for under $100 and just transfer all my hardware to it. So for under $100, I can have another Elite 2. Or I could spend $200 and get a DualSense Edge and be pissed off at the asymmetric sticks, right? You can do that. So I started looking around. And there's a lot of gyro out there, but all the gyro is reserved for the Switch. So if you get a controller, typically speaking, that has gyro support, it only has gyro when you are in Switch mode. So a Switch mode, which, okay, who cares? I mean, you see the Switch Pro controller looks just like every other controller. But there's a lot of things that are missing. No rear paddles. Yeah, you know you already lost me. And they are digital triggers, not analog triggers. So it's like, well, the Switch controllers are out, as well as any controller that only uses gyro when you're in Switch mode. Useless to me. So, a little bit of experimentation, bought a bunch of controllers, reviewed a bunch of controllers. Just could not find the unicorn, man. Then it happened. I got almost what I wanted. And that was the Xbox Series controller with this little big one thing on the back, which it's an accessory that gives you a rechargeable battery, full programmability, 4 rear paddles, and gyro. Now, this is kind of cool because it's hardware gyro, not bullshit gyro. I'll get to what makes that different in a minute. But the idea here is most gyro is handled by software. In other words, you got to go into Steam, you got to say use the gyro, you got to set all this other shit up. Hardware gyro, or gyro that is basically handled on the controller, very rare. So if you go shopping for something like that, keep your eyes open, because it's very easy to buy a controller that does not have hardware-based gyro. Okay, so I got this Armor Pro X, this add-on for the Series controller, the Xbox Series controller. And I gotta tell you, fucking amazing. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love it. But wait a minute now. I got my rear paddles. I got my gyro. But there's a couple of things missing from that Elite 2 that I'm kind of used to having at this point. And those are trigger locks. Once you've played a first-person shooter with trigger locks, you will never want to play a first-person shooter without trigger locks ever again. And so the Elite has trigger locks, right? 2 stages of trigger locks, in fact. You have the half pull and the quarter pull. And the quarter pull is like clicking a mouse. You can fire so goddamn fast and blow your mind up. And to a lesser degree, this is just me being picky, no adjustable tension analog sticks. Now, if you've ever heard me ranting about how shitty the ROG Ally analog sticks are, you'll know that I'm a little bit particular about the strength and deflection of my analog sticks. With the Elite 2, you can make it as loose or as tight as you want it. Dude, I was not getting over here for you, asshole. What a dick. Fuck off. I was trying to let this fucking truck in, right? Big giant truck. I was trying to let him in so he could get over. And then some asshole in his lane behind him zoomed up and just cut in front. Like, what a dick. Fuck off, Phil. Anyway. All right, so now I've got like 75% of what I want. 75%. I'm missing a couple of things, but it's the best I can find. This is the best solution I've been able to put my hands on. And it even uses like a mobile phone app, so you could literally be mid-match. You just get your ass kicked because your gyro is too sensitive, not sensitive enough. Your dead zone needs to be tweaked. You can just whip your phone out, boom, fixed right then and there. Multiple profiles right on the phone, change, bing, bang, boom, done. So it's almost paradise, right? I've almost got exactly what I want, but I'm still chasing perfection. So my latest outing has been the Apex 4 controller, FlyDigi. On paper, it's great. And I got to tell you something. They've got these triggers. This is some crazy shit. I don't exactly know how it works. Each of the triggers has some sort of controllable tension with a built-in motor of some sort. Now, I'm sure there's a breakdown on YouTube or something you can look at. But essentially, you control through software and through this motor, not a physical switch, you control how far down the trigger will go, right? So if you want to make it quick, you can, or if you want to make it a full pull, you can, and everywhere in between. But here's something else that's cool, and I know PlayStation does this on the DualSense Edge controller. You can do things like soft pulls. You can do, this is pretty cool. I didn't try it while I had the controller, but apparently you can treat the trigger, and they even have a setting for it called sniper. So you put your finger on the trigger and you give it a little bit of pressure, right, to get your finger in position. And then when you're ready to pull, when you pull it back, it snaps, it does a breakaway, just like a rifle would do. It is a rifle breakaway of the trigger, and then it fires. Pretty freaking badass cool. It has the rear paddles, it has the adjustable tension, it's got it all. Well, what about the gyro? Yeah, well, there you go. Therein lies our problem. Because the gyro in the Apex 4 controller is exclusive against the control that you map it to. What do I mean by that? So, you're playing a first-person shooter with a controller. What do you look with? You look with the right stick. What do you want to dial in when you're playing a first-person shooter? You want to dial in where you're looking to put the bullet. Makes sense, right? So when I'm playing on the deck, or I'm playing with my Series X or my Series Pro with the Armor Pro X, I can use the right stick for very coarse adjustments, coarse looking, getting myself right next to a character, right? And then I can dial it in with the gyro. So I've got my thumb on the right stick, I'm dialing it in, right? I'm dialing in the person, and now I'm ready to use the gyro to aim for his head. You can do that with the Xbox solution that I'm working with. But unfortunately, with the Apex 4, you get to either use the right stick or the gyro. Can't use both, which makes it useless, to be honest with you, right? Because essentially what you have to do is, if you can aim down sights, that would be one thing. So like you could set it up to where when you pull down the left trigger to aim down sights, that kicks the gyro on, which would then remove your control from the right stick, and you could, use your gyro to dial in and shoot. That is there. I mean, that you can do. But if you're playing Overwatch or pretty much any other game, right, other than your Call of Duties and whatnot, you're not typically aiming down sights. So you get to pick. Are you going to use your right stick, or are you going to use gyro? So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, do the course. Hey now, Alex is here. What's up, brother? Oh, Javier's here too. So you use your right thumb to get close, right? To get, your course adjustment. Release the thumb, let the gyro take over, and then pop the guy in the head. And you would be thinking that, and you would be right. You could do that. But there's a problem, because there's always a fucking problem. So the problem is, gyro, when you turn it on, works exactly the way you want it to. At least the way I want it to. When I pull back on my gyro, I want the cursor to go upwards. I want to be pointing up. And when I tilt down, I want it to move the cursor down. You would call that invert Y, you would call that airplane mode, whatever. That's the way you would fly with a flight stick, right? You pull back to go up, push forward to go down. That's how I want my gyro to behave. And that's how it works out of the box. Until you attach it to your right control stick. At which time, sucks so bad. So if you want to use inverse Y or invert Y with the right stick, it fucking mirrors the gyro. So now instead of the gyro working right, like airplane mode style, it goes back to being non-inverted because you're inverting the stick that it's attached to. I know, first world problems, boo fucking who. There are people starving. I'm bitching about inverted gyros. I get it, but listen, that's the kind of show this is. So there's no way for me to make the Apex 4 work the way I want it to, which is completely fucking ridiculous. It should be. They've got software settings and switches and controls for fucking everything on that controller, but no way to invert the gyro so that when you invert the Y stick, the gyro behaves the way that you want it to. It's ridiculous. So that's why the Apex 4 is going back. There's also going back because it's a $160 controller, and let's be honest, if you shop around you can get it cheaper, but that's how much it cost on Amazon. But you know what? We pay the extra money at Amazon and not give AliExpress 160 bucks because we know if we don't like it, it goes back and they don't ask any questions. I've never tried to make a return at AliExpress, but I'm betting it's not as easy as Amazon. So that's why. So even if I were to want to keep the Apex 4, I probably would ship it back and then pick one up for, 80 bucks on AliExpress or Newegg or wherever it happens to be that price. So, but yeah, so that's what I've been doing. And I thought, listen, at least I can get a video out of this. But I was so fucking disgusted that I had to bail on it. I had to get out because it was not going to solve my needs. And guess what? My needs are esoteric. Meanwhile, you can go online right now, go to YouTube and search for FlyDigi Apex 4 review, and you would think that this controller gave you god powers, made you fucking Iron Man or some shit. This is the greatest controller ever made. It is the best pro controller. It's got it all, blah, blah, blah. Not one person bitched about the gyro. Not one. I would be the only review where I'd be in bitching about the gyro not being able to be inverted. So why do that? Why spend? Because you know how I would do it. I would do a nice in-depth review. I would cover every feature. I would cover the extensive UI, the upgrade process, the flashing process. I'd cover everything. At the end of the day, for what good? I don't know. So anyway, that's why I'm not going straight home, and I am in fact going to Kohl's to return this controller, which I also think is kind of funny because the Assassin's Creed version of this controller was $10 cheaper than the plain one. What's that all about? That sounds like a Ubisoft problem to me. So this is pretty cool. It turns out, so you guys know that I spend far more time than I probably should on the Steam Deck subreddit. And I'll tell you what, if you have a high tolerance for friction and a high tolerance for lunacy, it's a great place to hang out because at least once a week, somebody peed on their controller, their cat threw up on the controller, the dog took a shit on the controller, I dropped it from a second-story building. Is there any way I can fix my bumper that's free? Literally, you can't believe it. Sometimes I can't believe it, and I'm there all the time. But every now and then, something like really super cool hits, and you're going, yeah, all right. So somebody posted that Plex Amp works great on the Steam Deck. You guys know what a fan of Plex Amp I am. And so it was kind of cool. It was like PlexAmp works great. Now we got this whole discussion going, and I'm like, yeah, I finally got a digital audio player that uses PlexAmp, so I don't have to deal with the shit, and I can stream my whole Plex library. And he's like, oh, that's so cool. Which one is it? So I got to actually send him my niche review of the Hibby M300, which happens to have a very streamlined, concise version of Android, which of course lets you use PlexAmp. And I downloaded my entire collection through PlexAmp, and now I've got the whole thing. Hang on a second here. I can do show and tell while I drive. Thank you, assisted cruise control. And so I have it right here. I have my bag. Anywho, so he was like, "What's the battery life on that?" And I'm saying, and I said, "You know what? I don't actually think I did a full to dead battery test. So that's why I happen to have it with me. I figured, what the hell? I'll get some battery tests out of the way, on Wi-Fi, not on Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. So that'd be fun. Yeah. So somebody in my peer group found an article talking about Nintendo DS games, and I was tickled to shit that they actually mentioned dual screen radio, right? That I did with Chris Henschel. That was one great show. I mean, not because I was particularly good or anything at it, but Chris and I, we had a good chemistry, and we really covered the kind of shit that most other podcasts or websites wouldn't cover. So we would cover shit like, soul bubbles and things like that, games that most people would have just like turned a blind eye to. I remember we covered a Wendon before it was Elite Beat Agents, of course. So that was really cool, kind of to see that in print. That because his dual screen radio was kind of short lived. I mean, it didn't last as long as retro gaming radio, but God, those things were killer to kind of put together with he and I on 3-hour time differences, getting a family started. It was a lot easier when kids were infants and you put them to bed and you could sit around and play Gears of War 4 for 5 or 6 hours at night. It was a different time, but it was kind of cool seeing old dual screen radio in person like that, something in the media that covered it. I see retro gaming radio every now and then, but it's sort of fallen from grace as well. Although I will get the occasional, hey, so and so referenced you in this, and I know RNC, what's that guy's name? Shit, it just suddenly jumped out of my head. He runs a really big retro channel over in the UK, and he credited Retro Gaming Radio for getting him interested in doing that sort of thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I'll tell you the biggest surprise, like when it comes to like your 15 minutes of fame or whatever, because I'm hardly fucking famous, but back in the old days, right? A lot of you have been watching, listening to the podcast for the last 20 fucking years. I ran a shareware programming company on the Amiga called Dark Unicorn Productions. And if that doesn't completely ring a bell, but maybe, our claim to fame there's two things that we're famous for. One was Scorched Tanks. That was like one of the biggest Amiga shareware games ever made. And that bears the Dark Unicorn Productions intro, one of our famous intros. And a full motion video game called Tomcat FMV. Those were the things that put us on the map. We were in Compute Gazette. We were in, Amiga Magazine. So was it Gazette? I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I'm in the Navy, right? So this would have been early 90s, 91, 92, right? The Amiga was still kicking back at that point in time. And we were in, I want to say we were either in Greenland or maybe it was the UK. God, I can't remember. We didn't get an opportunity to do a lot of port calls on that run. So I'm kind of confused on which one it was. But we often brought visitors, distinguished visitors or tours, right? So there were places on the submarine, obviously, you couldn't take the general populace, right? But we would do tours all the time when we were in foreign ports. Come down and see the USS Trepang in all of its glory, the USS Alexander Hamilton. So we had a tour group down, And I think I was on watch. I was at the forward watch, so I was like hanging out in the I was hanging out on the bridge, and this group of not young kids, but you know, they're young kids now, 20 somethings, came down to the bridge, and you know, the topside watch brought them down, and the officer of the day was running them around, you know, and we started chatting, and it's like, what's it like, you know, what's it like being at sea for so long, and you know, don't you miss your family? And I was single at that point. It's like, no, but I do miss my computer, right? Because I couldn't bring my Amiga on board, and it's like, and they kind of look at me like, what? And I said, my Amiga, I really miss my Amiga. He's like, you like the Amiga? I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? I write games for the Amiga. And so we got into this big conversation, and this guy from frickin' Dublin or some shit, wherever it was, he not only did he know Dark Unicorn Productions and Scorch Tanks, everyone knows Scorch Tanks, he's, you know, he knew my game. He knew Psycho Squares, you know, and he was like, oh my God, I love Psycho Squares. And it was sort of like, wow, this is kind of cool. You know, this is the amount of celebrity that doesn't have paparazzi and shit following you around and taking over your life. But every now and then, you know, you get a little somebody that says, hey, God, I do remember you. I do know you. So that was like really cool, you know. And Retro Gaming Radio, of course, I had a really good following, and that was email days, right? That wasn't Discord days, not even really IRC days. But yeah, I would get email from all over the world. It was kind of magic. Everybody loves retro games. Everybody loved it. And I got everybody, men, women, children. I got straight people, gay people. I got crackheads. There was one guy that like, he's like, there's nothing more that I like more than doing crack while playing Tomcat or something. I don't remember what it was, but it was everybody. It was like, what the fuck, man? I got crackheads listening to Retro Gaming Radio. I had a priest, like a Roman Catholic priest, like from Italy or some shit, that used to write in all the time. He was a big fan of the show, you know. He always wanted to write in and shoot the shit. I was like, wow. So I've got basically everybody from crackheads to God, kind of listening to Retro Gaming Radio. So it was kind of funny. Yeah, it's a lot of work though. That kind of thing. It's like, oh, bring Retro Gaming Radio back. Nah, market's too saturated with retro gaming stuff now. Now it's almost cliche retro gaming now, which is kind of sad. But you know, the hipsters kind of took it over. Now you're paying $50 for a $2 Game Boy cartridge. You know, WATA grading and all that other stupid shit. Yeah, you know. I'm happy not to be doing the retro gaming stuff anymore. Kind of sad, but whatever. Well, I've only got a couple of minutes, and I really don't have an agenda today, so the controller shit actually took up more of the time than I was hoping it would. So that's good. Anybody want to talk about anything? I'm still only really watching 3 shows. Dr. Odyssey is back, so I'm watching that. I'm watching the new Daredevil. I'm watching Dark Winds, and I'm watching Reacher. Those are the 4 shows that I'm watching right now, and they're dribbling them out week by week, and I chew those things up the second they come out, so I tend not to have much to talk about. Oh, I did watch an older Nicolas Cage movie. I kind of got the urge to just sit and veg and just watch movies, so I watched one of my favorites, which I had not watched in a long time, which was Doc Hollywood. Listen, it's a guilty pleasure. I love Michael J. Fox. Julie Warner was in that, and she was literally as fine as she's ever been. You might remember her from, a lot of people saw Tommy Boy. She was the hot chick in that. She's a lot hotter in Doc Hollywood, though. I love that movie. Let me talk about Doc Hollywood for a minute, because I don't think it gets enough love. So the basic concept is Michael J. Fox is playing an asshole, of course, because that's what he does best. He's an asshole doctor that's going to leave his real business practice of doing medicine and go work for George Hamilton as a plastic surgeon. Sounds crazy, right? And it kind of is. But the idea is that he's leaving. Everybody can't wait to see him go. I thought you were going to practice real medicine, you shithead, because he's going to go be a high-paid Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. On his way, he ends up crashing his car into a fence in the little South Carolina town of Grady. And the cat just so happens that the guy's fence that he also the judge. So he gets a community service of like $100 to be the local doctor of this little shithole nothing town in South Carolina. Sound good. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna. Wait a second. Oh, I guess it is still going. Well, oh, I guess it is still going. Well, okay, cool. Well then, I don't know. Okay, cool. Well then, I don't know how that cut off or anything. I don't know how that cut off or anything, but I've only got another minute here. But yeah, Doc Hollywood is one of those movies where like there's so many characters in that movie, and you remember them all. I mean, there's so many great characters in that movie, and if you haven't seen it, give it a whirl. I really like it a lot, and you know it's coming out on 4K pretty soon. I can't wait. I'm all excited to watch that again in 4K. But yeah, so I watched that, and the Nicolas Cage movie, and we'll save this for next time, was the movie Pay the Ghost. Pay the Ghost. I've had it sitting around forever. I just never got around to watching it. And that super hot doctor from Prison Break, what's her name? Sarah Wayans Callie or whatever. She's his wife, and you know she looks great in that too. It's a one-time watcher, worth watching one time. Pacing sucks a little bit, probably a little too long. And the older I get, the more plot convenience that I see. It's like, well, isn't that convenient? So there's a spot where where some school teacher who's playing dress up on Halloween happens to know everything about an old Celtic legend, and it's like, well, isn't that convenient? But anyway, yeah, we'll talk more about that next episode. I got to get my butt into Kohl's and drop this controller off. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.